Good morning. The big story of the day, or should I say the big picture of the day, clearly is that of the Rath Yatra from Puri. We had in our editorial yesterday even said that the Supreme Court decision on allowing the Rath Yatra to be held was probably a flawed one, for the very simple reason that the conditions that the Supreme Court laid down in terms of having the right amount of social distancing, we said that these conditions are going to be very, very difficult to actually fulfill. And as this picture shows, and as well as many of the videos that were doing the rounds yesterday, that social distancing is going to be very, very difficult. The saving grace, of course, is that as compared to in the past, the crowds, the crowds along the way were nothing compared to what you had yesterday. But the question is whether the number of people pulling the chariots, whether those were enough to cause a problem. Whether it does or whether it hasn't is something we won't know for a while. Orissa, as we've seen in the past, just does about 4,500 to 5,000 tests a day. So they're woefully inadequate. So let's just hope for the best. The other corona picture in today's Financial Express, a graph actually. The other corona picture that is equally worrying today is that of the rise in infections in Delhi and versus cities like Mumbai. Somebody at the news desk was obviously having fun. Because for some reason this graph is captioned capital gains, whereas actually this is really about losses. So basically what this graph does is that it tells you that Delhi's share in the all India COVID numbers has jumped quite dramatically to about 10.2, 10.3% on May 3rd, and this is around 14.2 or 14.3% right now. This is still lower than Mumbai. Mumbai is about 15% or so. But keep in mind that on May 3rd, Mumbai's share was 20.4%. So this is basically a direct result of the authorities in Maharashtra being able to contain the spread of the virus, especially in the slum areas of Dharavi. In terms of deaths also, Delhi's share has more than trebled in this period. So this is essentially quite worrying. But the good news here is on the corona front in the Delhi that there seems to be some level of progress in terms of creating facilities for treatment. Hospital facilities. In fact, if you go by Home Minister Amit Shah's tweets yesterday, he put out about 3 or 4 tweets on this. If you go by Home Minister Amit Shah's tweets yesterday, there seems to be some involvement of the military, of the paramilitary forces like the ITBP. So that's good news. Rules for testing also seem to have been relaxed a bit. And the good news here is that, as our lead columnist yesterday, Dr. Srinath Reddy of the Public Health Foundation of India had suggested, the rapid antigen tests should actually be used alongside the RT-PCR test, because the RT-PCR test is really the gold standard. So the government, the latest ICMR guidelines seem to accept or seem to say that this is now going to be the rule here. Do read the piece if you haven't already read it, or you can look at this video again. The piece is available at epaper.financialexpress.com, and the video is available on the YouTube channel of the Financial Express. I don't want to bore you with details, but the short point is that the antigen test is fast. I mean, that's why it's called rapid. The good news here is that while the rapid antigen test is very fast, its ability to detect infection is even lower than that of the RT-PCR, which is around 70% here. So essentially, if you really want to figure out what's happening in the country, you need to combine the two. So you'll get the people that the rapid antigen test does not catch, the RT-PCR will catch. So hopefully in the days to come we'll see a combination of the two. So far what we've been seeing is the rapid ramp up in Delhi's tests over the last many days has really been because of the rapid antigen test and not the RT-PCR. So hopefully now the RT-PCR will also pick up here. Our top story, not surprisingly, given the conditions today, given the news environment today, is that India and China have agreed to disengage, but as of now there are no timelines. So this sounds like good news, but as with most things involving China, it's a good idea to wait till it actually happens there. Related to this, and quite worrying because the signs of this were available from the very beginning, related to this is the increasing xenophobia in India. The latest is a directive from the GEM portal, the government e-marketplace. Anybody wants to sell anything on the government has to register on the GEM portal. So the latest directive is that anybody on the GEM portal has to indicate the country of origin of the goods that he or she is selling here. The good news here is that the study has already been completed. Otherwise, given its massive Chinese content, there is no way that it could have got built in today's environment where you've got to state the amount of Chinese content. In fact, there was a report in one of the newspapers today that the government may even be thinking of doing color coding for products that have a higher import content. In fact, one of the arguments that I make is that if you're going to be doing color content of goods and you're going to code goods which are foreign as red or something like that, maybe it's a good idea to start color coding laws. If there are bad laws in India, laws that have hurt the country, maybe those should be coded red. The next story is that of President Trump implementing his promise to suspend H-1B visas. As we said earlier on, given that it's election time in America, the rhetoric is going to get stronger. So he has now suspended those visas, given that 65,000 visas every year or thereabouts are taken up by Indians. In a sense, this is obvious that there will be an impact on Indian IT companies. But the good news here is that firstly, the market reaction has been somewhat muted. In fact, every major IT stock has actually gone up as compared to the level at which it opened. One reason for this is that IT firms seem to be hiring a lot more in the United States anyway. So to that extent, they will be more prepared for the directive. Secondly, because of the slowdown in the economy, the global economy, the American economy, after the pandemic, the flow of fresh orders had slowed down anyway. So, I mean, but fingers crossed, we have to see how this happens. Not surprisingly, every major American company, whether it's Google or whether it's anybody else, every major American tech company has criticized the action, because right now, what we also know is that there aren't that many American people in the tech who are ready to work in the tech sector, who are actually skilled enough to work in the tech sector. So the tech industry in America is obviously worried. The good news, if you're an optimist, is at the time when the central and the state governments are struggling with meeting their expenditure, PSU capex seems to be keeping a pace. So we have a story here which says that in FY20, PSU, central government PSUs managed to meet about 90% of their capex requirement. The bad news is that the capex has been almost stagnant for several years. If you look at that graph, for the last 3 or 4 years, the capex levels have been more or less similar. So that's the bad news. So the glass, whether the glass is half empty or half full, that's something that you'll have to take your pick. But one thing is clear, given the way things are with the pandemic, the glass will get either less full or more empty this year. Moving on to our editorials, the top editorial today is whether India has finally managed to lick the UTI T-Rowe problem, the T-Rowe price problem. Much of the arguments that the editorial makes are something that we discussed on this video yesterday, so I won't bore viewers with the details, except as I said, as I said earlier, you go back, read the edit on epaper.financialexpress.com or look at it on the YouTube video at the Financial Express channel on YouTube. So you'll get the video there, you'll get the edit on the e-paper. But the short point that the editorial makes is that even past the IPO, central government PSUs will still own about 44 to 45% of the shares of UTI. So if the government is so inclined, this gives the PSUs enough power to actually ensure that UTI does not function as an independent board-run company even after the IPO. In fact, for those who are not convinced about this, you have to just look at any PSU today, with just perhaps a handful of exceptions. In fact, I don't even know if there are a handful. With just a few exceptions perhaps, most PSUs, the big decision in most PSUs are really lie in New Delhi, whether it's share buybacks, whether it's dividend. A lot of these decisions are really taken by the central government, despite the fact that these PSUs are listed, despite the fact that they supposedly have independent boards and independent chief executives. Second editorial today is equally worrying. It's basically at the time when there is a lot of fear of increased global hacking. In fact, over the weekend, Australia was very badly hit by hack attacks. In fact, the Prime Minister basically said, he didn't actually name China in so many words, but he said a state-based actor was behind the events here. So at a time when global hacking events are going to increase dramatically, the editorial points out India seems woefully underprepared and actually uncoordinated. To cite one line from the editorial, we don't have one response team, which is what you should have, and most big countries in the world have one central response team. We don't have one response team or one organization which looks after this. We have CERT, for example, but the problem here is that every state government has its own CERT. Most ministries have their own, response teams, and in fact, even when you look at the central CERT-in, it has issued its warnings. For example, on WhatsApp Pegasus, it's issued its warning only after the alert was raised by other people. So what we need is a coordinated strategy. We need one organization in charge, and we need to have mock drills. We need to have safety standards which say how often a drill has to be done and things like that. Another article on our edit page today and on our op-ed page today is that of R.C. Bhargav, Maruti chairman. It's essentially an article on his latest book on why India is so uncompetitive. I haven't read the book right now, as yet, so it's difficult to say what exactly are the solutions or the points that Mr. Bhargav has raised. But by and large, they can't be too different from what we already know. And I think the problem here is that while we all know what is wrong, what we don't know is who is going to fix it. Rajiv Nath, who is the coordinator of the Medical Devices Association, in fact, has a piece which is somewhat linked to what Mr. Bhargav is saying, because what Rajiv Nath talks about is that the government itself has admitted that because of high interest costs, infrastructure costs, poor power and things like that, Indian manufacturers face a 12 to 15% disadvantage as compared to their global counterparts. And this, mind you, is without looking at the cost of the regulatory Raj. That's something which is also quite significant. In fact, Mr. Nath has a very good line on this when he says in his piece, and he's talking about the dramatic increase in the production of ventilators or PPE. He basically says, I'd like to see how many ventilators would have been made in the last 3 to 4 weeks had the Drugs Act been applicable to their production, and ditto for PPE. So, which is really the point that Mr. Bhargav is making. Who is going to fix this? And unless this is fixed, India is going to find it very difficult to actually become a competitive player in the global arena. And all its talk of battling China and things like that, all of this just become just talk. We're running out of time, so I'll just run through the highlights of some other stories. The state governments and union territories, it's very unfortunate, have disbursed just about 16% of the 32,000 crore rupees that they had collected as a cess for construction workers at the end of March. This is pitiful performance. A large number of these construction workers had gone home. A large number of these construction workers had been rendered jobless because of the pandemic. So this is a big fund which is available, and the states and the union territories could very quickly have spent from it, but they haven't, as our story shows. In fact, this just underscores the point that we've been making on these videos for several days now, and in the Financial Express for many years now, is that India's real problem is not the lack of money, but essentially is poor execution capabilities at all levels of the government. The story that we have is a Telecom Equipment Manufacturers Association has basically blasted the Finance Ministry for not allowing a government guarantee to be given, which would have in turn allowed BSNL to raise money. But that's not the important part. The important part about this story is that had BSNL raised this money, it would have been able to repay the equipment manufacturers. It would have been able to pay them the 20,000 crore rupees that it owes them. So there's a big question here, that what kind of a government are we running where it is almost okay, it's part of business as usual to be holding back dues of suppliers. And this applies to the government as well as to PSUs. In fact, most viewers would recall that when Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman was having her daily briefings on what the government planned to do to fix the economy or help the economy after the pandemic, one of the points that she had raised was, or one of the factors that she had listed was that all government department and PSUs would be encouraged or would be told that they had to pay their dues. But shouldn't they be paying their dues anyway? That's the way the government runs. Another very important Corona story is really about Patanjali. So yesterday, Patanjali grabbed a lot of attention on social media, on in other areas. Basically, because Patanjali put out a press release saying that it had found a cure for COVID. It had actually done the clinical trials, and its new medicine was actually called Coronil. Basically, no corona after this. So after the company started advertising this, unfortunately for it, the government asked it to stop. It said that, we haven't seen the data on the clinical trials, so we suggest that you stop the advertisement and stop the sale until we actually see the details of the trials. And but around 9 o'clock at night, Acharya Balakrishna, who is the managing director of Patanjali, tweeted to say that there was a basic misunderstanding or a communication gap between it and the government, and that this has been resolved. In fact, that the company had followed all rules when it comes to how the trials were to be conducted, and presumably the company would make those details available to the government. So corona killer or nil? Well, we'll just see. Thank you. Have a great day.